Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the We Have Issues podcast. Uh, I'm Chris.
I'm Carvel.
And I'm Matt.
Today we will be discussing the Annunciation Church and School shooting that occurred on August 27th, 2025, when a gunman shot a Catholic school while Mass was occurring in the morning, injuring several people, mostly children, and ultimately leading to the deaths of two children and the shooter themselves. Guys, for me, this was, a real gut punch, especially since I'm Catholic. Me going into church, the next Sunday, just kind of imagining what that would have been like, especially, with, so many children. It really messed me up that day, and it's, it kind of still is in the back of my mind. What are your guys' feelings and thoughts on what happened?
Obviously you hear the story. It's a sad thing about as American culture, American people, that we have become numb to these type of situations because they happen far too often, and far too often, I honestly hate to say it like this, to our wanting, to our liking, because it's just something that it's it can be prevented in my view stance. However, there's so much red tape that we have to go over. There's so many things that is going on in our politicians and how we're legally trying to control who gets guns and how what guns should we allow, and all these, whatever metrics. So in saying that, that's the reasoning why a lot of Americans are starting to become a little bit numb to these breaking news and hearing these situations, which is quite sad. And I'm constantly praying for the American people, the American heart and stuff. But, it's always sad when you hear children die. It's always sad when you hear about school shootings. It's always sad, and parents are getting a little bit more frustrated about the safety of their kids, as they should be. And this is actually putting a lot of pressure in the educational system, security, police, and everywhere. And I don't know, it's just really sad.
Yeah, it's stressful. It's very scary because it hits so close to home. I mean, almost everybody has kids that go to school. In some cases, people work within the schools. In this case, there was a church involved, and there's a good portion of America that still goes to church. So it's just very scary. It's not something that I like to hear about. Carville says that we've become numb to it. Probably a lot of truth to that. But in my case, I haven't become numb to it. I kind of feel such empathy about it, and so disturbed by it that I don't really even want to hear it, especially when there's children involved. I just, it's hard to even listen to those stories. And another point Carvel made is that it's almost some people get gleeful about it. There's people that can spin this politically, and they really like to be able to take advantage of a situation like this. Who was it? Was it Nader who said, "Don't let or was it Rahm Emanuel that said, "Don't let a good crisis go to waste"?" Yeah, and that's kind of the route that we've taken. It's almost like it's becoming a pastime, as sad as that is to say, that there's a school shooting and then everybody takes to social media to get to discuss it and give their 2 cents. And there's nothing wrong with that, from the perspective that we're trying to better the situation and figure things out that we can remedy it with. But at the same time, it shouldn't become something that's almost like a sport.
One of the sad things about what's going on is, you know, these shootings, people are becoming a little bit more creative. Like this more recent shooting, I was told, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but the shooter was shooting through the window
Yes.
instead of coming in.
They
And
planned to, from what I gathered, the original plan was to get inside, but they started to lock the doors. The shooter couldn't access the building, and so just started blind firing through the windows.
And if you've seen photos of this church, the reason why shooting through the windows was such a viable strategy for the shooter was because they went all the way down to the floors, so it right into the pews. So and the shooter, having attended the school previously, his mother, I believe, worked as a secretary there for a few years.
definitely, he would have had a lot of intel if he went there, especially understanding maybe they've had drills when he was a student. And, the drills that they had, he probably can point out all the blind spots, which is kind of sad because there was a more recent shooting, and I forgot. I forgot where exactly it was, but it was it took place in a Catholic school where when it was one of the first times we've seen a female, a biological
That was the
female
Tennessee
shooter.
one.
That wasn't a Catholic school though. That was
It wasn't? Okay.
No, I can't remember which denomination it was.
Yeah, that's one of those tricky things, right? That's kind of why I use like the biological female,
well,
stuff.
even
I don't know, maybe that's not a right term. I don't know.
even in this case, like the shooter in the Minneapolis, not to go off too far off a tangent, but the shooter in the Minneapolis case, was starting to have regrets about their transition in their writings, and who knows if how the shooter even identified themselves. So and also it's kind of a moot point because I do not think that being trans was in any way related to the shooting.
No, Chris, that's a good topic that you just brought up, right? Because do you understand what the Trump administration currently is trying to do?
What is that?
They're trying to create a gun ban on all transgenders.
This is the first time I'm hearing that.
Really?
Yeah,
This
is some. So that I'm actually happy that you brought that up.
Oh wow!
Because this is something that the Trump administration is trying to do when we're talking about gun laws. They're trying to ban all transgenders from being able to purchase firearms.
Oh.
So this is something that is a topic under discussion. Where a lot of people will see it as being very hypocritical, because how can we ban transgenders from having weapons, but unwilling to ban other individuals from having weapons?
Oh yeah, it's opening up a can of worms for sure.
You could make the argument that this is a mental health crisis, not a guns crisis, which is where I'm kind of going to go with this later on. But if you make that argument, that if someone is mentally ill, has a psychological condition, and that's a reason to restrict gun access, maybe you can get behind that. But at the same time, what qualifies? We don't ban. Do we ban schizophrenics from purchasing firearms? Do we ban drug addicts from having firearms? These other people that have these mental conditions. If someone's a functional alcoholic, can they not buy a shotgun? Can they not buy a 9mm?
If they're court adjudicated that they have a mental condition that makes them dangerous, then yes. So it's a bit of yes and no.
Well. I mean, is there a court that's willing to say that just the very nature of being trans? I mean, these are all for individuals. Like
exactly.
Like court adjudication can't apply to a blanket ban on any group. So you can't keep trans people from buying guns.
I'll do a shout out to another video. Ian Carroll covered this the other day, and did a deep dive on this recent shooting, and we're trying not to use the shooter's name. That's why I'm kind of trying to find ways around saying it, but to refer to them. But he did a deep dive and examined everything, and it didn't seem like he obviously had regrets about the transition part of things, but it seemed like that was kind of just a compiling motive. It really was not the main issue. It really, like you said, Chris, is just a mental health thing overall. It sounded like the individual was greatly depressed and had a lot of issues with how they were dealing with certain things in their lives. They alluded to being sick. So I don't know if there was something terminal going on that they had found out about. And just that the fact that you would, if that is the case, if you're depressed, you're ready to leave this world, if that's the lasting impact that you want to make, if that's your final, wish is to cause that level of harm, there's obviously something wrong there. So I think the Republicans have went overboard on the trans aspect of the story. I think the Democrats have gone overboard, as they always do, on the gun control issue. And I don't think anybody's really paying attention to the true underlying problems, which is probably mental health, medication, lack of resources, community resources, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think I think this individual, just was, just depressive, not nihilistic, misanthropic even, and that's what developed into this. This person had some underlying mental illness that may or may not have related to their gender identity, but regardless, that wasn't the case. Like, that wasn't the reason why they shot up the school. Their underlying mental condition.
Here's why the Trump administration is going to have an argument when it comes to banning transgenders with banning transgenders to having weapons, or banning them from having certain guns, or even guns outright. Is there are statistics that back up their claim. For an example, one statistic reads that transgenders are 4 times more suicidal and more depressed than the average adult, or average teenager, excuse me. They're more likely, twice as more likely to inflict self-harm on themselves compared to a normal teen. And 72% of them, I'm reading this, and 72% of them are more likely to have mental health issues. So this is an argument that we can't rebuttal, that the Trump administration, they're not good at. The Trump administration, sometimes they have good points, but they're not very good at expressing those points to the American people. And when you lay it out that, hey, transgenders should not have gun rights, it sounds ridiculous, and the audacity of even mentioning it is absurd. But when you break it down, and if someone breaks it down with the statistics, and jumping off of the statistics first, for an example, 72% of transgenders tend to have mental health issues, and they're 3 times more likely to be depressed and have anxiety, 4 times more likely to, compared to a regular teen, to inflict self-harm. Then people are going to listen to those statistics, and that's probably something that that is going to be hard to figure out as the American people, right? Of what should we do next? Because what you can't do is you can't just target a group and say that, hey, because this group is doing this, you are not allowed to participate in the American experience. And that's something that we're going to have to figure out and come up with a real solution for.
I don't think it's hard to figure out. I mean, people with PTSD, I don't know all the statistics, but people with PTSD are more likely to commit suicide, more likely to have drug problems, and other underlying mental health issues. Same thing, people with depression. I myself was diagnosed with panic disorder, and part of that is just acting crazy at sometimes. So it hasn't in my view, doesn't have anything so much to do with the trans aspect as much as it's just these little symptoms that are offshoots of that condition. And so, we don't ban people with PTSD from having firearms, depression, and things like that. Although we're kind of flirting with that because of the, having to report medications and that sort of thing. So I don't think I think honestly, and I think what the Trump administration is doing is pulling some of that 4D chess that they always get accused of using. This is, to me, a brilliant tactic. It forces the Democrats to come to the table to defend somebody's gun rights. I don't think that the Trump administration, I think they understand that this won't play out. I mean, the right side is not going to let somebody take Second Amendment rights away from anybody. They're just too firmly rooted in that, and the left is going to have to either abandon, transgender individuals in this fight, or they're going to have to defend gun rights. Honestly, I think this was a nothing burger that they knew was going to drum up good publicity, no matter how it went down.
And Carvel, to just address, a couple of your points on that angle. The first thing is, on those mental conditions that seem to be comorbidities with, the nature of being trans. The trans community would say, and a lot of times, the reason why these underlying mental conditions exist is because society has rejected them. They've, a lot of times their parents don't support them, and that leads to depression and anxiety and all that sort of stuff. Does not appear to be the case with this individual, as the mother took them in as a minor to legally transition. So there must be some underlying support of that.
I mean, I can get on board with you, Chris, with the cause. Like, perhaps their mental instability of why they are where they are was not their cause. But you can say that with anything, right? Felons, there's a lot of felons that are in prison that, their upbringing or society or whatever it may have interjected in their life in a way that caused them to be a felon. But they are also unallowed to, be a gun owner. A lot of mental health, people with mental health, a lot of people that are, I didn't know this, but dishonorably discharged. If you were dishonorably discharged, I didn't know that, but I'm reading that right now, and an undocumented citizen. There's a lot of people that don't have the right to gun ownership, and it might have not actually been the cause of anything they did directly, or it may have been.
Which is an interesting point, because it's the Second Amendment. Is that a right that can be taken away? I mean, I guess technically yes, since in cases of crimes, you can take away someone's freedom of movement and those sorts of things. So I guess for felons, that makes more sense constitutionally. But I mean, undocumented immigrants, I mean, they for court cases have shown that the Constitution applies to undocumented immigrants, and that ought to be the Second Amendment as well.
Yes, but Second Amendment, yes, it clearly just it states you have the right to keep and bear arms, and that's there's a lot of these absolutists that
depends on what it is, because it's the right, because a well organized militia is tantamount to the protection of the states. Therefore, there's that argument that
there is. Well, and there's where I was going with is there's absolutists that say absolutely own any weapon of any kind, anyone, and there's even people on the far right that don't want felons barred from having weapons. But there's precedent to understand the Second Amendment was written through the guise of applying to responsible gun ownership. There was cases in the colonies where people did have firearms confiscated from them. So you've got to keep that in mind. That yes, the Second Amendment is not to be infringed, but the Second Amendment does apply, assuming that you are being a responsible gun owner. Now, you can get into the weeds of what does a responsible gun owner mean, but there is, there is precedent for it to be revoked for certain individuals. Is what I was getting at.
Also, too, I'm curious. Okay, so just to guys give you my viewpoint, right? On the whole gun ownership, I am not for guns. I don't like guns, right? That's just who I am. That's just me. I just think that, uh, you know, guns to me, and we could talk about this in a few, but guns to me cause more issues in America than not having guns. I think the Second Amendment, you know, we as a government we restrict to what bear arms means. So it never said guns, it never said knives, it never said bazookas, it never said tanks, whatever. But why can't I just roll down the street with a tank? Why can't I just have a a weapon of mass destruction? Why is this stuff not allowed? It's because of the mass destruction aspect of it, right? So I think that's something that I feel really passionate about, is that anything that can harm people um, massively, something that can harm multiple people, one individual harm hundreds of people. I think something like that we should take a second look at and possibly ban them, possibly get rid of them. Because why, if like, what is the reason that I have a machine gun? Like, why do I need uh, a semi-automatic weapon? Why?
Because all
Like,
guns are
if I,
semi-automatic now.
okay, well, I don't know anything about guns, so thank you for that.
Well, not all guns, Carvel, but and generally speaking, the semi-automatic function is how your basic modern firearm of any type works.
okay. Well, we got to go back to the powder days, when we put you know,
the true absolutist position.
Carvel has a blunderbuss in his car.
Well, we look at these other countries that have heavy restrictions on their gun laws, and the outcome, they often have favorable outcomes. Like, for an example, I mean, I know Japan is not like the U.S., so I can't even fantasize about that. But like, they have less than I've read somewhere they have less than 10 deaths a year. That's like wow to even think about, and that's a population of 125 million, if you can imagine. The UK and Australia, countries that are very similar to us, they have some of the lowest firearm homicide rates in the world. And homicide is always the biggest picture when we think about firearms. But what people don't realize is suicide is actually the biggest killer of guns, because once you pull that trigger, there's no going back.
Yeah,
and so that's something that we really need to think about and understand.
It's a little unfair to compare, and you've acknowledged this, Carvel, and I know you understand this, but to compare other countries to the U.S. as far as how guns play into that it's really not apples to apples and oranges to oranges. Japan is a completely different culture, more Nordic countries, again, completely different makeup, completely different geographic area. The closest would probably be Australia. I would probably say that would be the nearest to kind of having the geography and the makeup of the U.S. But Australians aren't happy with the gun control laws that they have. They think they've gone too far, and there is a fair amount of crime that could be curtailed by guns. I mean, it's something to consider that, depending on which estimate you go with, we'll go kind of in the middle. There's estimated to be 1.5 million defensive uses of firearms every year. And so it seems like we have a lot of mass shootings happening, but there's been years where those don't even go get into the teens, whereas you have 1.5 million defensive uses of firearms. That's 1.5 million people that didn't become victims because they had an equalizer.
I'm gonna go on record and say that I'm likely the opposite of Carvel. I am what you would say is an absolutist, Matt. It is a right to bear arms, and that has been seen case after case come up and brought back up. In the Revolutionary War, merchants would outfit their ships and use them as privateering vessels against British military ships. There is a constitutional right for me to own a warship if I so choose. Like that is what was set as the utmost limit in practice with the Supreme Court. So I should be able to have a tank. I should be able to have all these things if I so choose. Now, should that be completely unrestricted? I'm not so sure because, like I mentioned earlier, it's in service of the militia. So I would be fine with something like an elected quartermaster position that only has to answer to the county sheriff, who's in charge of making sure that everyone who has a weapon is a responsible party and can act to restrict their access to weapons if they feel that there is a need with due process and all that. So, I'm not, complete unrestricted, give a kid a gun coming out of the womb sort of situation. But I do think that's important because, Carvel, since you're anti-gun, this is something that I'm always curious to ask. A lot of people are afraid of a lot of things that Trump is doing right now. If not necessarily Trump, but if at some point in the future we get a leader who starts horribly restricting rights, who takes a more oppressive, autarchical view of this country, who leads us into a dictatorship, what do we do in a gunless society to fight back against this? How do you envision that happening?
First off, if the U.S. military were ever attacking, there is absolutely nobody. No, you will not be able to stand a chance. The U.S.
I don't believe that's true. I think
it is so true because you think
we defeated the British Army. I mean, that was the most powerful
British army that was going overseas and then coming over with men that had 3 teeth and barely any bullets. And they were going across the Atlantic before.
How do we still occupy Afghanistan?
No.
That's the entire U.S. military against a bunch of farmers.
The Mujahideen was horrible. I mean,
that's a completely different atmosphere. The reason why it is, our goal was not to conquer or control Afghanistan, but bring stability. That was our entire goal. If we had our goal of getting rid of a political leader, that's different, right? But when we're talking about trying to when we're talking about trying to fight the U.S. military, you will not be successful.
What is success? Because I think what is success though? Because I mean, I might as an individual have to lay down my life in defense of freedom, but would that kill the idea of freedom? If I died, there'd be 10 other patriots that would stand up. How many patriots does the U.S. government get to mow down?
Yeah, I mean, we've got
to enforce this autocracy.
There's 130 million-ish gun owners, private gun owners in America. That's a lot to go up against. And Carvel's, I think he's kind of got the picture of the entire military force showing up on your lawn. It'd probably be more like a guerrilla warfare type situation. Like you would have 4 or 5 National Guardsmen who are running through a neighborhood, snatching people up for whatever mission that they're on. And then you have the good old boys who, bust out the rifles and handle business. And so, I get where Carvel's saying that it would not be a defeat of the United States military, but it would be kind of I won the battle of the war situation.
Also, military studies have shown that in a Civil War type scenario, a third of the military just drops out and joins the rebellion. but another third remains in as bad actors to sabotage the military. I know a lot of servicemen, and I know, that, they're there to defend their families. They're there to defend their country, and they're not there to defend a dictator. So,
well, see, and that's the thing, right? If there's not going to be any unity in the military, and a third of the military drops out, they have access to weapons, and whoever the general at that time of the rebellion, they have access to weapons. And if they don't have access to weapons, I guarantee you they got Russia on the phone or China on the phone saying, hey, I need you to send me some weapons. But if it's an individual saying that I don't like the way the country is being run by dictators, guess what he's going to do? He's going to go to a political speech of a Republican nominee that's getting ready to be elected in 2024. Take out a sniper, shoot at him, and miss him in the air. That's the power of what one man can do. Whether you like Trump's politics or not, I absolutely hate his politics. You should not create an instability in American politics. You shouldn't have the power to create an instability in American politics by killing the leader. Now, it's different if we all believed in the same idea and he's stealing elections and he's just being this crazy dictator, right? Sure. But at that time, you would hope that people inside the military, people inside the government, which we're seeing less and less, have some sort of integrity. We are losing integrity as Americans. I understand
that's
that.
Big ass, Carvel.
Yeah.
No, well, Carvel, actually, that's a good point. You're saying, you can't rely on those people higher up. Everybody's been corrupted. So what is it that would keep politicians in line? Why have we never seen corruption like other countries have? I'm not saying there's not corruption, but we've never seen it on the scale that we've seen it in other countries. And the fact is, it's the guns. I mean, a gun in the hands of the average citizen is a powerful motivator for politicians to at least try to act right.
I think it's more so of our political system, right? The way our political system is set up. Regardless, we don't like how it's set up, but we do have bad actors. And in the way the people, the American peoples, our hearts are changing at a rate that it's kind of saddening, right? And when I say our hearts are changing, we are getting to the point where we put our political party over the American people. So I've heard some interviews where people say that if Trump went out on the middle of the street, shot someone cold-blooded, and everybody was able to see. I forgot the guy's name. I don't know.
It might have been Trump. Trump may have been the one to say it.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's Trump.
Yeah, I heard some other guy say this, and he would still vote for Trump. And that is an issue with how American people are starting to think. We are putting our political party over over the collectiveness of what's important to American society. And it's getting quite sad. And if we go this far down a dark road, then we have other issues, man. It doesn't matter whose hand you put the guns in, because you got to fix the heart before you try to win over a country.
So this has come up in the voting members page on Facebook a pretty good bit. Everybody's kind of got different ideas and has bounced around, different things that we could do to help with gun control. What Carvel, you seem to be, you're kind of like on one end of the spectrum. I think Chris is on the other. I'm kind of falling in the middle. So what's your recommendation, Carvel? Obviously you want to take guns off the street. Is that all guns? Is there a particular gun?
Okay, yeah, there's a lot I would do if I was supreme leader, right? I couldn't do it even if I was president. I couldn't change it the way I would want to change it, and that's actually a good thing. The way I view guns right now, how it's perceived in the U.S., you can't take them away, and it's impossible, right?
Right.
Or you're gonna piss off everybody. So what I would do is I put more control in our counties, the county government or the local government, whatever, and have them. I'd make sure every gun was easily identifiable. Put more technology in those guns, where we know when those guns were, for example, we know when those government guns were fired. Fingerprints are registered in the guns, so that we know the last person that fired that gun. There's a lot of technology that we can utilize when tracing who's using guns, why they're using it, statistics, and putting more responsibility on a higher chain, so that we know that individuals won't have too much power. If you want to protect your home, sure, I'm not going to argue that. But if you want to go out and start shooting up schools, or be part of gangs, and all that stuff, I want statistics, and I want these guns to be able to give me data. I know that's a lot to ask, but the manufacturers, you put more pressure on them. Hey, if you guys want to produce these guns, what I want these guns to be able to digitally upload fingerprints. I want these guns to be registered, and if it's reported, somehow the gun, I don't know, this is like crazy technology, right? If a gun is reported stolen or lost, we can somehow disable
Shut it down.
Yeah, shut it down. The gun owner can somehow shut it down. Bullets somehow, we can figure out a little bit more details of the bullet. Just, I'm all
Carvel's talking about smart bullets, man.
Yeah, as you guys know, I'm all about technology.
We gotta put those Apple tags
The bullet
on
looks out the gun.
bullet.
It was like, wait a minute, you're not Carvel. I'm not flying out of this gun.
Right. No. Well, that's a little bit extreme, right?
Carvel, I would love to register these guns of mine, but they appear to have been lost in a tragic boating accident.
You go to the manufacturers. Those are the people that are making money from these guns. You go to them and say, okay, you can no longer make these style of bullets. You can only make bullets that pertain to these style of guns that are registered, and these style of guns that we can keep track of and know who fired them and know who's doing what to these guns.
Carvel, did you know that lots of people mill their own bullets?
That's what I was going to say. Is this?
I don't.
What would happen with this is people just start manufacturing. I mean, you can take.
You can build your own. I can go. You like technology? I can go online right now, download a CAD file that will print me a gun in my own home.
Well, yeah, that's one of the. That's where I would.
But you're not creating a semi-automatic weapon, right? You're only getting like 2 shots before it gets like.
They have some. There's metal. I mean, there's metal 3D printers. They're expensive, but you could do it. I think.
Maybe you can. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could. Stuff.
Okay. I mean, I like it the way it is. I mean, the Second Amendment pretty clearly states bear arms, can't infringe that. We already step on toes in that regard. Which I'm actually fine with. Red flag laws aren't going to do anything. You just lie and get around it. It's already difficult to purchase a gun. The first gun that I bought on my own, I got held up a week. I actually bought it online, had it sent to a physical FFL dealer, had to go in, pass a background check. Apparently I had a name that was similar to somebody on a watch list. So I actually got held up a week to buy my first gun. So it's not like that. It's you can just walk in and walk out with a gun. It's not that simple. I think earlier somebody mentioned Steven Crowder. He did an episode where he took people who were not gun owners to a dealership, and they tried to purchase guns, and they saw the process that they had to go through to do that. I'd probably abolish the ATF altogether and move the actual working parts of it into the FBI. I think that would be a lot more efficient. The problems that Democrats have been pointing out, ghost guns, assault weapons, these are non-starters. I mean, these are non-issues. Ghost guns, to my knowledge, none have been used in any attacks. Assault weapons, nobody can explain to me what an assault weapon is. There's no qualifier. Other than being black and scary. That's literally, usually what it boils down to. Perfect example is the Ruger 22. Comes stock with a walnut natural wood stock, looks like your typical hunting rifle. Liberals say that's okay, but the minute you slap a black polymer kit on it, they want to ban it. Exact same gun, just looks different. So I'm fine with regulating the way I've said. I like the idea of taking away things that make the operation of firearms inherently more dangerous. That's bump stocks, that's binary triggers, things like that. That could even be extended into using, 3D printers to mill guns at home. I don't know that I agree with that. And I like to build on what, Chris and Carvel, you both have had good ideas. Carvel is open to utilizing some technology. I think that's a great idea. I don't so much like the idea of using handprint to activate the pistol because I think everybody should have access to that. There's scenarios where you would want somebody else, the little kid that shot the intruder not long ago in his house, if the gun only fired when his dad had it, kid couldn't have used it to defend himself. But I do like the idea of like registering who fired the last shot. I think that's a great idea. Chris, I like the idea of education. We're going to go back to it being a cultural thing. If we have gun culture in America, we should have firearm safety in schools at some point. I don't know why we don't do that. And I think that would help a lot if we trained people properly on how to use guns, what their true purpose was. It's not to put in your rap video. It's not to go out and terrorize the neighborhood to establish street credit with. It's for fun. For target practice, is for procuring food, and it's for self-defense. I want to clarify, so because Carvel keeps using the semi-automatic term, you understand that's like you pull the trigger.
I'm gonna say automatic. Okay, I'm gonna say automatic weapons.
But we can't have automatic weapons.
Okay, see, I don't know that.
It's stupid the reason you can't have automatic weapons because they require a government tax stamp, but the government doesn't issue the tax stamps.
I don't think it's stupid. I don't think you should have a machine gun. I'm with Carvel on that. I don't think you should have a fully automatic weapon. And there are certain individuals that have that stamp. I know like out in Arizona, they have some gun ranges where you can rent and, on their range, you can fire a machine gun, but that's where I'm with Carvel. I don't know why you would need a fully automatic weapon as an individual. That's where I'm about regulating firearms, is making the operation of the firearm safer. So I agreed with Trump when he banned bump stocks. I think binary triggers ought to be banned because those are if you've ever shot a bump stock or a binary trigger, they don't work well. They can only be used for stupidity. And that's something I would like to see, is bans on things that make the operation of a firearm less safe. But the left seems to be focused on things that they just deem scary. Like there was a senator who tried to ban barrel shrouds. I remember I think it was on Tucker Carlson. She was wanting to ban barrel shrouds, did not even know what it was. She thought it was the stock that goes against your shoulder. All a barrel shroud does is wrap around the barrel so you don't burn your hand on it.
Let me ask you guys this. So if I'll ask you first, Chris. If we had whatever range we wanted when it came to weapons, what do you think would change in America and what wouldn't change? Do you think we would have the same society as we do today, where people are getting killed at the same rate, people are getting shot at the same rate, police will have to worry no more, no less than what's going on? Do you think it would change this? Like, if we had it your way, a free range, will that change society or will it not?
If we had free range, I don't think that it would change society all that much. Because there's kind of two sorts of people in this country. There's the ultra gun havers who they love their having that machine gun tax stamp. They love having the gun case that's as big as a walk-in closet. They love being able to parade all of their different guns around to everyone and go to the gun range every single week. Those people, they would just have more toys to play with. And they would spend up to their financial budgets to get those guns. Meanwhile, you have the other group of people who have never seen a gun in their life, wouldn't even know how to operate one properly, who just are never around guns. Both groups,
You're not missing out on anything.
But both groups wouldn't be any different. And the people in the middle that maybe they have a hunt, maybe they go deer hunting every season. Maybe they keep a 9mm in their glove box and have a concealed carry permit to never use it. I don't think society would change all that different. However, I think society would get worse if we banned them completely, because it wouldn't change for the people who don't use guns, but the people who are really into guns will start getting really paranoid and start getting involved in organized crime to maintain these weapons. They're not gonna report their guns. Like I said, so many fishing accidents that year that they come to grab the guns. They're going to have to go to like organized crime rings to access the things that they want because they view it as their right. So banning guns
that's why
will lead to worse
we put
outcomes.
a lot of faith in our police, right?
Yeah.
Do we think the police can't do anything?
I think they're worried about the police.
Yeah, I mean, the police are they're only as fast as they can get there. I mean, if you have the gun in your possession and that's something that I think the ASP pushed was for the 72-hour wait period to buy a handgun. And I kind of get, the thing is, the cooling off period for buying guns really is ineffective, because if you're pissed off enough that you're planning on going and purchasing a gun to kill somebody, you're going to be just as pissed off at the end of 72 hours. And you're still going to figure out a way to do it.
Even then, let's say you're not pissed off. If you're that sort of person, you wait your 3 days, you get the gun. A year later, you get pissed off. Hey, guess what? You have a gun.
The only person that's going to affect is going to be the woman who's in a bad domestic situation, who does fear for her life and who decides that she does need to have that firearm to defend herself. That's kind of the scenario that plays out in my head. Is she knows that she's in danger, she can't get away, but she could, after work, drop by Bass Pro, pick up the firearm, and defend herself. There's, for example, when I almost worked in Memphis, in a really bad part of town, I already had a handgun, but in my case, if I hadn't had a handgun, I would have went out and bought one that day for anticipating going to work on Monday, and that's more than 72 hours. That would be that weekend I'd want to purchase it.
And Carvel,
go ahead.
I think guns are kind of a red herring in all this situation, because the vast majority of gun owners never use their guns irresponsibly.
I never use my guns, period.
The vast majority of people probably haven't ever used a gun, like Matt said. I myself, I haven't shot a gun in decades, it's really, when it boils down to, is it's a mental health crisis. Because when you take away the guns, these attacks still happen, especially on children. If you look at China, for instance, China heavily restricts their guns. But if you look at how many knife attacks occur in China, they are a list as long as every single shooting case in America.
Well, I don't know, man.
They specifically target children many times in this situation.
Are we talking about deaths by knives?
Yes, these are mass knife attacks.
No, they're not even close to the U.S. statistics, especially when you bring in guns in the mix. For an example, guns, the more gun ownership, there's a correlation. There's a strong correlation with more gun ownerships and more gun deaths and more deaths in the U.S. related homicides. Right, there is a strong correlation. And then when you compare the U.S. and let's say a country that's more similar to us, that's what we were talking about before, the U.K., who has a lot of stabbing incidents, right? Stabbing deaths compared to the U.S., whatever and stuff. But the homicide is nowhere close to the homicide or the suicide. It's nowhere close to the percentage that the Americans have. And you can look this up. There's data that brings that is shown to us that the higher the gun ownership, higher gun deaths. And it's a statistic that's out there that you cannot rebuttal. Like suicides are also too tied very closely to guns.
With great power comes great responsibility. But yeah, you're right. Plus, you can really account for that suicide rate. I would say that's more indicative of something wrong with American culture in general. It's just we actually have more effective tools for that. To be crass about it, but the thing is, we have general experiments to show how it would work if we were to magically get rid of all the guns. War on drugs, drug laws, perfect example. Complete travesty, did not do anything, in fact made drugs worse. So you could kind of correlate that to guns. If just take out drugs, replace that with guns, more gun laws probably wouldn't do anything, might even make it worse. You have blue cities that have really strict gun regulations. In fact, in Chicago, they can't even get an actual shooting range open, which would actually help with responsible gun ownership. And blue cities have some of the worst gun crime that there is. And I know that the left likes to point out red states have high incidence of gun deaths. But if you look at it, so for example, I'm from Louisiana. If Louisiana has a really high rate of gun crime, gun deaths. If you were to take out blue cities, the top three, that would be New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport. If you were to take that out, gun deaths go down by 30%. And it's probably even more by now.
So I hate that argument. Not saying that you're wrong, but I hate that argument. But instead, the states enact laws. So you kind of got to look at the states.
But why does it only happen in the cities then? Where the Democrat leadership is.
You could compare the cities, but all the major cities are blue, and they don't make the laws. I think it's a better case to look at the states, right? So if you look at all the red states compared to the blue states, and I'm not giving the Democrats any leeway. I believe I've seen that the gun deaths are more than twice as many. There's twice as many gun deaths in red states than there are blue states. There's twice as many crime-related gun crime in red states than there are blue states, and it has almost everything to do with how we allow guns to be used in these states.
I think we're drifting away a little bit, which isn't bad because this is an important part in the gun control debate. Reel us back in though. The impetus of this conversation was one deranged shooter came in and did a mass shooting. Those mass shooting incidents are not caused by guns. Those are caused. My point that I was making is those mass shooting events are not caused by guns. They are caused by a mental health crisis. In other countries where there is a greater gun restriction, those crimes, those sorts of mass casualty, mass death events still happen. They just use different means. In China, like I said, that's usually knife attacks that are done. But in Germany, there was that Christmas market incident in Magdeburg in 2024 where someone just drove a car through a bunch of civilians. This happened in the U.S. in Waukesha, Wisconsin, where that one guy ran into a parade with his car. Yeah, that's a mental health thing. And if we have restricted guns, that
I-
person would
well-
have just driven a car
well,
or used a
Chris,
knife.
I think that's a very unfair analysis sometimes when people say use cars or maybe even a hammer or bricks, because cars, their creation, the creation of cars were specifically meant for transportation. That's it. That's what their design is for, right? Knives, their design is for cutting, not necessarily stabbing. Guns, their design is to be an efficient killing machine. That's it. That's the design of it. So when you so Matt said something earlier that guns are a type of gun is a more of effective tool. That's completely what it is, right? You can stab somebody with a spoon, right? But a knife is a more effective tool, and that's the bottom line of it, right? So, yes, people have access to a car. You can get access to a semi or whatever and drive it into a crowd. Yeah, sure, that could be an effective tool, but that's not what cars are designed for. So they have their flaws in their effectiveness. Guns and automatic guns, or let's say nuclear weapons, right? Their effectiveness is killing at a massive level. That's where the issue comes in. How I feel. I see Charlie Kirk and other people online talk about passionately about like, oh, well then why don't we just ban cars? And I say to myself, because cars are not designed to kill. They're designed for
but what does
transportation.
what is the difference between what something is designed for and what something is used for? You say that a gun is efficient killing machine. The vast majority of guns have never killed a person. The vast majority of guns
But
have never killed a
I
person.
need you to redefine that because okay, sure. And you're thinking about the person
and here's
that
something
don't pull their own trigger, right?
I'll side quest on, with mass shootings, even the most efficient guns that could be used for mass shootings are typically not used at all. So that's just a point I would like to make. Like, I don't want to say if I were going to go on a mass shooting spree, the guns that are typically used is not the gun I would pick because it's not the best tool for that job.
Thank you all for listening, for watching us. If you'd like to hear more about our topics, please like and subscribe. It always helps us out. We would love to hear from you. Leave a comment. And with that, I'm Chris.
I'm Carvel.
I'm Matt.
And you've listened to the We Have Issues podcast. God bless and have a great day.